Hello world! Every so often I throw a curveball onto YouTube, and it's really been nearly a year since Hannah and I made a cookery video. We were making fresh pasta. Well, today I just thought I'd take you into my kitchen and I would continue with the Italian, well, it's not really Italian, it's sort of American Italian theme, and make a sheet pan pizza. Now, this is a recipe that I got off a YouTube channel called Brian Lagerstrom. I'll put the link to his video down there. This recipe looks absolutely delicious. This one looks relatively easy to do. Now, there is an apology that I have to make to start with, and I know excuses merely make you look silly, but I really do not have very much of a kitchen. I have got the tiniest little space to move in. I haven't got a fully equipped cook's kitchen. So this video really is just going to be about whether or not I can make his sheet pan pizza recipe, which I'll give you the links to in the description, in my kitchen. Just see if I can do it. That's all. I'm not going to teach you how to cook pizza. I can teach you how to play the piano because I've got a degree of expertise in it, but I can't teach you how to do something which, you know, I just have no expertise in. I do like cooking. I do watch tons and tons of recipes on YouTube, and, you know, occasionally I think, oh yeah, I could actually do that one. All right, this is not going to be Brian Lagerstrom's exact recipe, by the way, either. I'm going to make it just a little less cheesy and, you know, just sort of go with the flow a little bit. Again, substituting with things that I have got. And that's it, really. Apologies for my kitchen. It's already covered in flour because I've been measuring flour. So, yeah, we'll just dive in, and let's do this thing. Okay, so into this bowl I have got 425 grams of flour. That's about 3.5 cups, just under 3.5 cups, or about 14 ounces of flour. I'm not going to be able to give you imperial measurements for all of it. The recipe was given in metric measurements mainly. He uses grams even to measure fluid, and I think just by a little bit of trial and error, I've worked out that where he says like 285 grams of water in the recipe, which are going to go in here now, warm water, then you're going to need 285 millilitres, i.e. the same number of grams as millilitres. We'll see whether or not that theory works out, okay? Here is 1.25 cups, or 285 grams, stroke millilitres of warm water. Okay, I've had to sort of use a mixture of water from the kettle, which was too hot, and just sort of mix that in with some cold water just to get it so that it's sort of nice and comfortable for me to put my hand into, because I don't want to burn the yeast. I know that yeast is very temperamental and I don't really know anything more about it other than that. This is brand new yeast. It's got until March 2024, I think it is, before it is done, as it were. So we'll put that in. You need to add 20 grams or 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. No idea how many millilitres that is, probably 20 millilitres. And this jug is not being very cooperative in showing me its measures, but hopefully that's about right. What else do we need? 8 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I am sure that that is not a major measurement. This is sea salt, so I'm just gonna put some in. Okay, and probably less. I mean, that is sea salt and it's stronger than normal salt, so I'm just putting a shaker maker in of that. Right, so we've got warm water, yeast, olive oil, bread flour. The bread flour, by the way, it says it's something like 13.5% protein. Now, I do not have a stand mixer. In fact, the only thing I do have is sort of like the sort of 50s and 60s precursor to a stand mixer, which is one of these little sort of detachable handheld mixer things. I've lost a dough hook. On it, and I'm sure it'll be all right. You should really be able to mix it with a metal spoon, but I don't really want to do that. And I want to put that down, so bear with. So this wants to mix on slow for about 3 minutes, or until it's made a messy ball. And I can see that I'm going to need to turn it round. Okay, so bear with a sec. Just going to talk to my watch. Count down 3 minutes. You really want the other one, don't you? Because that is not really coming together. So I've put on just an ordinary whisk one of these, just to balance it up, to get the bowl to spin round. It might even be coming together. You never know your luck. It might take a bit longer than 3 minutes though. I'm a bit worried about stuff that's on the side, so I might have to deal with that in a second. Oh my lord, look at the state of that. Golly gosh, Mr. Inch. Might want to splash more water. Stop that there. Right, that hasn't quite come together, so I'm just going to get a spoon and just see if I can blend in just some of these bits down in the corner there. You see. Already we're having a bit of a disaster. I've put a bit more water in. Hope you can hear me over the noise of this, but I don't think this is going to work very well. It wants 6 minutes at full speed, so yeah, it's got about 5.5 minutes to go, and we'll have a look at it then. Okay, so I have now turned this out into a well-oiled Tupperware tub thingy. Although actually it could probably do with a little bit more sort of encouragement up towards the sides. I've probably let it sort of go flat, but you do need to oil it properly. The next thing is to fold strength into the dough. Now I think this is too sloppy, but we'll have a go. We'll see what it turns out like. So I'm doing this one-handedly, and maybe I shouldn't be, but you turn it like that, turn round like that, and then turn round like that, turn it up like that, and then turn that round like that, and then you do the same, I think. So you turn like that, and then fold it again. You've got to lift it up a bit more than I'm doing here, but I'm trying to do this one-handedly, which is probably not the most sensible thing to do. Given that I've never made a pizza dough before in my life, I've just turned the dough around there. Perhaps I ought to have had a go at doing this before I'm doing this on video, but this is me. I just make sort of deliciously homemade videos, right? And I think that just needs to sort of go and be encouraged to be kind of like a smooth ball, and I'm not getting that, so I'm going to just put the video down and just use my hands for a second. Okay, so I've got this. The next thing to do, this is not perfect. This is not the way it should be looking, all right? But the next thing to do is to put this with a lid on out of the way somewhere and leave it for half an hour. And so that's what I shall do. And I might have done a bit of tidying up, cleaning the decks by then. I thank you. Okay, now this is going to need 3 lots of this sort of folding in and rising again times. That's the first 30 minutes done. So I need to fold the strength in again. Now, what's happening so far is that hasn't really risen. What it's done is it's expanded towards the sides. Okay, I've got far too much olive oil in there, and I'm tempted to tip some out. So world, this is the basis of what is going to be the tomato sauce. Now I'm making about half the quantity that they're suggesting in this recipe. just because I've only got like half the size can of tomatoes. I have a feeling that if I double it, I'm going to make it too big for the pizza tray that I've got. So that is a 14-ounce can of tomatoes. It's 400 grams. So I say 14 ounces, it's not quite, it's roughly. I've got 1 teaspoon of salt. He suggested using 4 teaspoons of salt, which I think even in that recipe, it's just too much salt for a healthy heart. All right, so then I've got a teaspoon of brown sugar. Again, 3 teaspoons. They suggested I'm going slightly lower than that. That's brown sugar. It's nice. Okay, this is Italian dried herb mix. Okay, they suggested using basil and oregano. This is some very lazy chili instead of chili flakes because I don't have them. This is very lazy ginger. Okay, the very lazy stuff comes in little jars, lasts forever. All right, what I've done with this ginger is spoon some out and then just sort of squeezed it in my fingers and squeeze the juice over the sort of spice mix because it's quite nice, the ginger juices. This very lazy chili, 1 teaspoon of that will take the roof of your mouth off. That was the edge of a teaspoon, and possibly that's too much. So now we've had 2 30-minute proving stroke rising sessions in this Tupperware tub at room temperature. All right, so let's have a look at it now. Oh, has that risen a little bit? Does seem to have done a little bit. I did drain away some excess oil, so hopefully that's not damaged it too much, because they want more oil in the pan when you actually cook the pizza. So yeah, so I'm going to do this sort of folding over movement again. So you need 2 hands to do it, but you basically lift up one end, turn it round, lift up the other end, turn it sideways, lift up the end, go around that way, lift up the end, and then repeat the whole process. So I'll do that off camera. So this is now the time where you have to transfer your dough onto a liberally oiled baking tray. All right, this is quite liberally oiled anyway. There's so much oil on the dough itself that I really don't want to put too much more in here. I've just used my fingers just to kind of spread it around a little bit. Clean hands. Okay, so now you flip this out onto the tray. All right, this is not quite, you see, you're supposed to have a nice perfect seam here, but I'm going to accept that I'm not going to get one. All right, and that needs to be stretched out. Apparently you won't be able to stretch it out all the way. It will be quite difficult to stretch. Okay, but then it needs more resting. So I'm going to cover it with a tea towel that has never seen any dirty dishes on it at all, and leave it for 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and make this sauce. So that's about as far as I've been able to stretch it out to, and it does want to just keep bouncing back. So I think the idea of covering it and letting it rest again is to sort of help it sort of form its shape. So now I'm heating up some oil with a good sludge of garlic puree. It's a little bit too high on the heat there. Turn that down a wee bit. Okay, now these herbs and spices that I showed you before, bear with me while I put the camera down for a moment. Those are sort of sizzling a little bit. So this is a can of tomatoes. Okay, and I'm just going to bump that up a little bit with some water. Okay, that's about 1/3 of a tin. And what I've also got here, talking of deviating from the recipe, is just because I need to make room in my freezer, frozen onions and peppers that were taking up space. Right, this is not because I have no imagination, but sometimes it's just because I like to do things quickly. But I wouldn't buy these again. I don't think that they have an awful lot of flavour. And if you put them in with the oil at the beginning, then they're going to end up burning and sticking to the bottom of the pan. So I'm doing it now. So this is just going to hubble bubble, toil and trouble for probably the next 25-35 minutes maybe. The pizza still needs another stretch and another rest. Okay, so far with the pizza we've had an hour and a half of being in a tight lid container with stretch and fold every half an hour, and then we've turned it out onto the tray and then stretched it out a little bit into a kind of rectangular shape. It just kept wanting to spring back, which I'm assured is normal. I'm then going to just wait that 20 minutes or so until such time as I can stretch it out again, and hopefully it'll play ball a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for Sir Thomas's puree, which I forgot to add. So I'm just going to give a good dollop of that now. It'll be fine, I'm sure. Okay, so I substituted the tea towel for another baking tray, a smaller one, because that's all I've got, which is a bit more like what they used in the video. Now that has risen quite substantially. Now what they showed you doing was a technique called degassing, which is where you basically just sort of plop your fingers in it and kind of go around popping bubbles by popping your fingers in it. It's like 24 hours in police custody. Would you like to explain why your fingerprints are all over that dough? No comment. And then you have to, and again, this is a both hand jobby, so bear with me. You need to now stretch it out to the edges. See how that goes. Now that so far is the best I'm getting this, and it's shrinking all the time. It's constantly wanting to disappear from the edges of the tray. I swear I've got it bigger than this, but I'm going to cover it again, this time with the towel. It's like spinning plates, so I'll sort this corner out, and then that's going again. So yeah, it needs to rest again. It needs to rest again for another 15 minutes. So this has been covered one last time. I've had to stretch it out a little bit more. It seems determined to shrink again. We will now start our covering. Now I'm going to start out by doing a layer of mozzarella cheese. Okay, it is this grated stuff from the supermarket. Yeah, I've not skimped on the cheese, but I think perhaps for me, loads of slices of slabs of mozzarella, I think that might have just been a little bit overkill. So that sauce has turned out quite thick because I let it hubble bubble, toil and trouble for quite a long time. It now needs to just sort of be spread over there a little bit, and there's none left. So I think I was perhaps right in doing just the one can of tomatoes and halving things. So I'm just going to spread that a little bit more over there a bit, so that we don't get a great big chunk of just crust and nothing else. Next is some mature cheddar. Same thing, grated from the supermarket. Okay, got some of those pepperonis left. They were 85p, by the way. So yeah, so this is now going to go in the oven. Now, talking of oven, at least none of the cookery programs that I've seen or videos that I've seen from America use gas ovens. All right, whereas they're very common over in the UK. They basically turn the electric oven up to 575 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't know what that is in Celsius. I've just turned the gas up to warp factor whatever, and it's been preheating for quite a little while. I think it would have taken a long time to come up to that heat, but I don't have a pizza stone or a pizza steel. I do have a metal tray as one of the shelves in my oven, which I've put on the lower third of the rack. I'm hoping that it's going to make a quick and dirty pizza tray, because what we want is a nice sort of, or pizza steel, very quick and dirty, improvised one. Because what I don't want is to have a soggy bottom, matron. I can't wait for this now. I think it might actually work. So, world, I have never made pizza from scratch before, and I am really quite proud of this effort now. It's crusted up a little bit around the edges. However, it is beautifully golden. You might just have to take my word for this. I'll show you a bit in a minute once it's cooled down enough for me to cut it. But it's beautifully golden underneath and quite crispy. Now, my makeshift steel baking shelf in the oven has taken a bit longer than the 18 to 20 minutes that was suggested in the original video. It actually took me 27 minutes with 2 little stops, one at 10 minutes. I took it out, it was all still quite doughy there, and just sort of lifted up the base a little bit like that, as it were, with a fish slicey thing, and then just turned it round 180 degrees, popped it back in, 12 more minutes, it was virtually done. And so I then just thought, well, perhaps just 5 more minutes, just for that crust to be a little bit more, or for that base just to be a little bit more convincingly golden and crispy. All right. So the next thing to do then is for me to cut myself a piece and come and make you drool, because actually that looks absolutely wonderful. Right, world. It's probably taken about 3 hours to do that pizza. But I just want to say, before I take my first mouthful of this, that was 2 hours of sheer panic for me, making a video, and kind of most things that could go wrong actually went wrong there. The dough didn't mix up properly because I didn't have 2 dough hooks on my mixer. I then put too much olive oil in it, in the tub thing, so it got a bit soggy, and yeah, so I was then worried, is it rising properly? Am I folding it correctly and everything? And probably no, I'm not. Okay, it probably takes practice. It's like playing that piano over there. It just takes practice, you know, until, you know, you can do it properly. But I'm going to take my first bite of this now. It's lovely and golden. I don't know if I can show you. It's lovely and golden on the bottom. It's perhaps not as crispy, I don't think, as it could be. The bits in the middle are a bit soggy, so I'm cheating a bit by having an edge piece. But you know, we can work on that. We'll make more. That's beautiful. Remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare, and if you want to, give a thanks down the bottom. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.